And so we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you so much, Courtney. You know how excited I am to have this
Thank you.
conversation. I think for me personally, actually, is it recording? Yes, it is. Okay. For me personally, I think this is a conversation around friendships that have come up so much. I feel like, especially in the last 2 years post-pandemic, I think everyone is kind
Mhm.
of rethinking what friendships look like. So I think that's why everyone has been so excited to have this conversation. So for anyone, if this is your first time, the way that this goes is we'll have about 40 minutes together. Courtney and I will have a conversation, kind of an interview style for about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll open the floor for Q&A. So I think most of you probably already know who Courtney is. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions. So Courtney, I'll pass over to you really quickly for a quick introduction, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Oh, thank you so much, Bosola. I'm so honored to be here. I've been excited to come and have this conversation. I feel like this is such a beautiful space and community that you've curated. So thank you for having me. Thank you for reaching out. Hi, everybody. My name is Courtney Daniella Boateng. I am from London in the UK, born and raised, but my heritage is Ghanaian. And I rep that to the core. Absolutely love Ghana and love everything about it. I am an entrepreneur. I am the co-founder of To My Sisters, which is a global digital sisterhood community and a podcast. Literally millions of women have listened to us talk about friendship and relationships and building healthy community, as well as really living a purpose-filled and purpose-led life, dedicated to changing the world for women. So through To My Sisters, through the content that we have created, we've been able to support girls' education in Tanzania, build a school in Ghana as of recently, and contribute to like women's homeless charities in London. So there's just a lot of different things that we do to promote women's wellness, but also support it practically. So yeah, that's a bit about me. I'm also a YouTuber and literally everything digital
All the things.
content. That is me. That
I
is
love
me.
it. I love it. That's amazing. I think, it's just a testament. I think it's one thing to create a community, but also the impact that you all have outside of your digital community, right? It's all the school that you're building, the people that you get to speak to and touch, and the lives that you're changing through every conversation that you all have, I think has been incredible. So I'm so, so honored to have you. And so before we got into
Thank you.
kind of the friendship, I want to learn a little bit more about you and kind of
Mm.
how you got into this space and this platform. Because I think I'd seen you post maybe a year or so ago that you've never really had a 9 to 5. You kind of went to college and then you've kind of been an entrepreneur the whole time. So
Yes,
what did you
yeah.
study in school and how did you know that this was something that you wanted to do?
Such a great question. So I studied human, social, and political sciences at university. So everything to do with like sociology, social psychology, politics, a lot of basically what we talk about now, like social commentary, that kind of bag. And I was super interested in my modules on feminism, race, and media and culture. And I think that really lends itself well to what I do now in the TMS space and with digital content. But post university, like literally 1 week after graduating, I started my hair company. So I actually ran a business. I had a hair company for 3 years called CDB London. And that was my main thing. Like I started YouTube 8 years ago. So whilst I was at university, and I kind of put it on the back burner to focus on having a career, being an
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And it worked. Like it worked really well. I had an e-commerce beauty company. We were selling wigs and hair extensions, making hair easy for women all over the world. I had like American customers, Canadian customers. It was amazing. And the pandemic came, and
Mhm.
my salon, which I had in London, I closed that down because of obviously like
Yeah.
isolation. And then my e-commerce site kind of like boomed. And I burnt out because
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for the scale.
Yeah.
And at that time, just before that time, Renee and I had started our um, podcast. In November 2020, we started a podcast just purely out of the pandemic
Mhm.
trend of everybody starting a podcast. What else do we have to do?
Yeah.
And so we were just talking about womanhood, and really our message has always been the same, promoting the wellness, growth, and development of women. And I think as I was falling out of love of my hair company,
Yeah.
um, I was really becoming solid on the fact that this is something I still care about, though. Like I still care about interacting with women. I still care about wellness. I still care about women feeling good and living well. I love the conversations I get to have in my salon chair, but I don't want to do the hair part anymore.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
decided to quit, like big time, just quit.
Yeah.
My friends and my family were kind of backing me, and it was kind of like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm not going to get a job. I hope everyone is aware of that. I'm
Yeah.
going traveling. So I went traveling, and whilst traveling, I was doing TMS, and TMS was just growing. And I think like God was just so kind that one blessing came after another. And though that was a closed door, I was still allowed to, like you said, like pursue entrepreneurship and grow something new in the sisterhood. So that's basically been my career journey. CDB London,
Wow.
TMS.
Wow. And I feel like that's also a testament, kind of like you said, that that's something when it's God aligned, purpose aligned, things just almost, even though it's still work, right? Things just seem to fall into place where sometimes you can't even see what the next 5 years are going to look like. But every step, it almost feels like there's something already prepared for you to step into that next thing. Then that's kind of,
Yeah.
oh, you're in the right place. And so I love that, right? Because we know entrepreneurship is not easy, but when it's something that you love and that you're truly passionate about, it feels like it comes easy sometimes. So I love,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And it's worth getting through the difficult seasons as well.
Yes, yes. So something that I know we hadn't talked about before, but something that you mentioned I wanted to ask is because especially with entrepreneurship, the pandemic, everyone's starting businesses, especially women. So starting with Renee, with a friend, with a very close friend, right? There's so much that goes into that with people that might want to start businesses or podcasts, but you don't want to do it alone. You want to
Mm,
start with a friend, but then you hear about, I started this business with my friend, I started this podcast with my friend, and now we
yeah.
fall out. So how did you
Yes.
first know that this was someone you could trust with almost your livelihood, right? For a long period of
Mhm.
time, have a partner in this to be successful. So how was that? How did you first kind of identify that this was the right person? And how has
Yeah.
it been so far working with a friend and still keeping your friendship, but also a business on the side as well?
Such a good question. Uh, I've known Renee since I was 11 years old. So we started secondary school together, which is your equivalent of high school.
Mhm.
And we knew each other. And during our time in like, I guess like senior year, I don't know if that's what you guys would call it, but like sixth form here, when we were preparing to go to university, we became like best friends because we had very similar ambitions, very similar goals, and our year group had like whittled down by number. So we were like, we're looking for new friendship groups, and I just became her best friend automatically. I told her she wasn't getting rid of me. So so from then, I think having a friendship which, started off as us being acquaintances and then being really good friends to then being best friends and going through university and sharing very similar journeys and very similar experiences. We were just building trust with each other through vulnerability and just genuine friendship.
Yeah.
It didn't start off as anything that was like a partnership of any kind. It was just, wow, we have so many similarities. We have supported each other through a lot of evolution. And when the pandemic came, we were just soul sisters. Like we call each other destiny besties. Somebody gave us that title and we were like, yeah, we're running with it. So destiny besties, it was just like, I can't shrug the feeling that this is someone who is meant to be in my life for more than just a season. And yeah, we were just having long conversations every day during the pandemic. And so it was just kind of like, if there's anyone I have conversation with best, it's Renee. To My Sisters was a series I had started on my YouTube channel well before the podcast was even born, but I wasn't able to sustain it. And as somebody who has been a solo founder before with my hair company, I realized that there's actually so much strength in having somebody who is complementary to you, to also hold you accountable. And so when the idea came to both of us to start a podcast, when I really started to think from a business perspective, how do we make this sustainable? I realized that Renee can't just be my co-host. She has to be my co-founder. Like she has to be
Mhm.
someone who has as much stakes in
It's
this as I do. And what I identified in her, which I think a lot of people don't when they're looking at going into business with a friend, is that she was highly competent.
mm,
Even if I didn't know Renee from anywhere, if I was running a company, she'd probably be my first hire. Like she's amazing at what she does. She has this amazing gift for organization and administration. She's a prolific speaker. She is an amazing thinker. And so it was just like, this is of course somebody that you want to do business with, even if, the platonic relationship was put aside. And so I think that was the first thing that indicated to me that this could work. We are both very self-aware, but also we hold each other accountable. And because our friendship was on the line, like you said, so many people
yeah.
start business and they don't just lose the business, they lose their friend.
Yeah.
Because our friendship was on the line and we actually valued each other's presence in each other's lives, there was a new degree of reverence and respect to make sure that things that crumble a company, like lack of communication or lack of accountability or unmet expectations were actually, being dealt with at the root. And we really are, walking a tightrope here. I've seen so many friends who started stuff, end their friendships, and it's definitely a narrow path. But yeah, we walk it successfully by walking with caution. And so yeah, we have a whole bunch of respect for one another, respect for each other's side of the business as well. Renee's responsible for this, I'm responsible for that. I can trust that she'll come through, and she can trust that I'll come through. And I think that just comes with competence and respect.
Yes, I think that's a really good, I think, word, respect, because I think sometimes you go into it, egos get there, I can do this better, or I don't trust that you can execute on X, Y, and Z. So I think having that trust and respect for the person that you've partnered with is so important, because I think probably if someone did a research study, probably 7 out of 10 or something businesses or friendships fall out because you're not having those hard conversations, or you're saying what you truly mean or saying what you truly feel. And then now you've not only lost your passion and your business, but also a friendship, so.
Exactly. And it's funny because so many people say, picking a co-founder is like picking a romantic partner. And I
Yes.
completely get it, because it's like, wow, this is somebody who you're choosing to do the very difficult things with. You really want to make sure this is somebody who you like and who you can actually trust to be mature enough and humble enough to go through the hard seasons with you and have those hard conversations, but also who you can trust is as invested as you are, not just in the business, but also in the friendship. And I think that's what I could tell with Renee throughout our friendship's evolution. We've just never given up on each other, even though seasons can change. We've been busy, we've been miles apart. She used to live in the US for study, and I lived in the UK, and I wouldn't respond to messages because I was doing entrepreneurship real hard, girl bossing too close to the sun, as they say. And she and so we went through those hard times, but regardless, we always adapted, and we always assured each other that our friendship means something. So yeah, I think it's the same mindset of picking someone who you're happy to do life with and who you don't want to divorce from.
Yes, yes, I love that analogy. And so something that you mentioned about you and Renee's friendship, right? You've been friends since you were 11. I mean, that's a very, very long time. It's probably over half of your life, at the moment, almost half of your life, right? So so that happens, right? We are all in like boarding school, or you go to high school and you make these friends, and over time you stay in touch and you're friends and things go. But then what you see sometimes is people just, their values change or interests change, and you're just kind of feeling a disconnect. So for people that kind of have had friends for a long period of time and are feeling disconnected from friends, but they feel like this is someone of value, but I'm just not, maybe they're not showing up for me in the way that I want, or I'm not showing up for them in the way that they might need. How can I bridge that gap to form that intentionality and that quality friendship?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Me and Renee have been friends for about 16 years, and it has been a fruit of being unafraid to be honest, but making sure that honesty is respectful. There are, many times we say, like, don't let things sit. Don't let things sit. Just say it. Like, if you're feeling some way, say it. Especially if you can't self-regulate, say it. It might not be a you issue. There might actually be something here, and maybe I'm feeling it too. So have those communications. And I think what causes a lot of friendships to kind of fizzle out, I wouldn't even just say fail, but fizzle out, is people are finding it awkward to say, I miss you, or to say, I want our friendship to actually be better. And it's actually okay to have that desire. I think as women, we're kind of coached subliminally to not, we have this term in London, like, be a beg friend. Like, you just don't want to seem like you need anybody. And it's like, oh, I won't reach out to you if you don't reach out to me. And it's like, then no one's reaching out to anybody. And I think the principle is, if you want friends, you have to be friendly.
Yes.
So that's what we've kind of done. Like, okay, how can I outdo this person in love and in care, and go above and beyond for this person, and just genuinely employ kindness? I think if you're struggling to have a relationship go deeper, maybe make the first move and show a new depth of kindness and be like, listen, can I take you out? Or, can we book in that time in your calendar to have a FaceTime catch up, and really, I want to know more about you, and be inquisitive with your questions, and create an environment which creates safety so that someone can tell you your story. I don't think we think about friendship that intentionally. And I mean, if you're looking for like really, really practical tips, we have actually written a book on building lifelong
Yes,
friendships.
yes, they have.
Yeah, so
Yes.
we have go and search for To My Sisters, a guide to building lifelong friendships, and unlocking the power of female friendships as well, as two editions. But I would highly recommend you read it, because in it we break down these things which we just assume people do in friendships, but actually a lot of us fail to do. It's the hard conversations, it's the being vulnerable, it's the having boundaries, like all of these things, overcoming a competitive mindset and a scarcity mindset, like all of these things that stop us from really engaging with intentional friendship. And I think finally it really comes down to you being committed to making that time. Like
Yes.
everything I'm saying sounds like it's time
Yeah.
like sensitive. It
Yeah.
is. Like it all consumes time. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like taking that 30 minutes out of your day to respond to your text messages. I've had to learn this the hard way. I recently lost a friend. Well, not recently, last year, I lost a friend because it was like, I always message you and you don't message me back. At some point, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
keep doing this.
Yeah.
And it was so understandable, but obviously it really grieved me because this is somebody who I had known from a very long time ago.
Yeah.
So even that, like being practical about your own self-awareness to know I'm really bad at messages. If I don't put in my calendar or on my to-do list, open your WhatsApp or open your text or open your iMessage, I'm not going to do it. So knowing yourself is a real key to it, but also going into your calendar or going into your daily diary and really marking out time that you're carving out for relationships and for friendships. Like, I think if you can message your partner all the time, you can message your friends,
Yes.
you can send somebody a message quickly that even says, I can't get back to you right now, but I will when I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love what you said about knowing yourself because, I think the older we get, with therapy and there's all these tools and podcasts and books that help us to like know ourselves better. And I think I was the same where I've had these friends for long periods of time. And exactly what you were saying earlier about hard conversation, that's something I had to learn. I avoided conflict like the plague. If I felt like
Mm.
it was going to be a hard conversation, I just would kind of check out and not say anything,
Yeah.
have a friend check me because this was one of my longest friendships and we were almost going to kind of lose that friendship. And she said, I feel like there's always something wrong. We're not always, but every time there's something wrong, I can feel it and I can sense it in your entire body, but then you don't say anything. You just kind of check out. I need you to kind of improve that and fix that. So I think it's also being self-aware when you're making new friendships, especially is what are kind of those triggers? What are things that you need to also work on? Because, to your point, if you want to have vulnerability and intentionality, you have to know the things that make you a great friend and things that you need to work on because they're going to keep showing up with every new friend. It's not about just making new ones and dumping the old ones that you had and say, this was too hard and finding new ones and moving on. You
Yeah.
have to be able to kind of identify those things. So if you do step into new ones and as you form new relationships, they don't show up again. Like same thing with relationship, attachment styles, all those things. But I think we
Mm.
always focus on the romantic aspect of it, but they show up in our platonic female friendships as well.
Yeah.
Those things that are about you that might make you not be able to get vulnerable, not be intentional, feel like someone else has to do all of the things. You also have to work on that, I found, before you
Yeah.
can create those genuine friendships. So I think that's something that all of us probably have a thing that we all have identified make
Absolutely.
us all better friends.
Absolutely. It's funny because we have a whole section in our book dedicated to like friendship profiles and
Yeah.
figuring out what sort of friends you are. And then as you're working through the chapters, we kind of delve in, okay, if this is your friendship profile, this is kind of your next step. And if this is your friendship profile, then you need to stop doing this.
Yeah.
Because it's so true. A lot of people don't think about how their attachment style, their past experiences, whether traumatic or positive, affect their approach to platonic
Yeah.
friendships or even professional relationships as well. So really delving into, okay, why am I the way that I am? You know that TikTok sound like, why do you act like that? Like, yeah, why do you act like
Yeah.
that? And if there's a clear trend between how all your friendships end or how all your friendships
Yes.
go, then maybe
Yes.
it's an indication that there's something you need to do with
Mhm.
you,
Mhm.
to change that pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and probably the reason why most people are on this call is, I want to make new friends, or I feel like the friends that I have are not quality. So I think I just want to kind of get your opinion as someone that has been in this space. Like, why do you think we're having such a hard time making friends? Do you think it's social media? Is it the pandemic? Like, what do you think is going on?
It's everything.
Yeah.
Literally, it's everything. I think I was reading a study about this actually on loneliness. And I
Mhm.
think we are seeing a very rapid, like scarily rapid
Yeah,
rise in loneliness, in the rates of loneliness amongst young people in particular.
yeah.
Loneliness is something that we associate with the elderly, but
Mhm.
actually it's something that really plagues young people because we have been kind of taught to be very individualistic.
Yeah,
And the pandemic came and kind of reinforced all of these things that were causing loneliness rates to rise when we all entered into a space of like isolation. And it was okay because everyone understood, but
yeah,
also we all became more attached to our phones. We started to work on new projects. It's like we were starting a new way of living, which is connecting through social media or becoming social media consumers. And I think that's a big mistake that people make. People think that because they use social media and they're an avid lover of social media, that they're a great communicator or they're staying connected, when
yeah,
actually social media is more so oriented around consumption than it is connection. And
yeah.
so allowing ourselves to actually be connected with people now felt like a hassle. It felt
Yes.
like a distraction. It felt like a bit of a waste of time.
Yeah.
And I think also more like compassionately, a lot of us started to develop a sense of social anxiety. Like now, actually being outside amongst a lot of people is quite draining and tiring and scary. When you've been used to a year or two of being inside your own home with your family, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people are overcoming those things. But I think because we saw that the world can go on
Yeah.
without those, because we realized that we can live, we didn't realize how much it would impact us years and years on, especially as we got older. Like I got into started when the pandemic started, I was 22.
Yeah.
And it just felt very like, oh, of course, me and my friends, we're going to have FaceTimes and
Yeah.
chief chats and all of that. But then coming out of the pandemic, it's like, rah, some of us are getting married, some of us are having kids, and now we also don't know how to talk to each other properly. It's like a lot. And
Yeah.
so, and now work is coming into the mix, and some of you actually have to go into the office. And I think a lot of us are dealing with a lot of change at the same time. And so I think all of these factors combined essentially have caused us to be a lot more reclusive.
Yeah.
And I think it just feels very awkward to
Mhm.
now, be like, oh, I want to be your friend, and I
Yes.
think that's also by virtue of just growing up, so
Yeah.
you're not on the playground anymore, where you go over to someone, you're like, you're
Yeah.
my best friend, and then you run away. We're actually living in a time where people kind of look at you sideways and think, what do you bring to my life? And so there's also
Exactly.
those feelings of like inadequacy and stuff like that. But I think if all of us are to adopt this mindset of sisterhood, where
Yeah.
it's like, you know what, I am my sister's keeper, and I'm always open to a conversation, I'm always open to giving somebody some time, we'll start to see more organic relationships form. And I think we need to be careful also not to overthink it and rush through the process. You don't just go from a stranger to an intimate best friend in 1 week.
Yeah.
Friendship bombing is a real thing. Like love bombing in friendships is a real thing. It's
Yeah.
okay, slow down. But
Yeah.
it's good to just pace yourself and allow yourself to have that one coffee in the month with someone new, or to message that person you've been thinking is really cool in the social group or the social setting and think, let's have some one-on-one time, let's go to dinner, come over to my house, or if that's too intimate, let's go out somewhere. Like, I think it's really thinking through, what is my action plan to
Yeah.
make closer relationships with people, whether it be meeting new people or just bringing the people I know closer, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you said, that was something that, I think I shared with you. I moved to Dallas 4 years ago now. And so it was the middle of the pandemic. I knew no one, it was very isolating. And exactly what you said, you kind of have that fear where you don't want to do too much. I remember calling a friend and I said, so I use Bumble BFF because I was like, I'm desperate. I don't have
Yeah.
anyone. I need to make friends. And so I would connect with girls and we would go out once. And then I remember calling my friend and I said, but I'm not hearing from them. And none of them are inviting me to things. Or, you get on social media and you feel like everyone else has this great life and you're just on your couch by yourself and everyone else is living. I would call her and I would complain. And I said, all these,
Mm,
why aren't they hitting me up? And she said, Basala, you are the new girl. These people have
mm,
friend groups over friend groups over friend groups. This is their home base. You are the new person. What have you done to build those friendships?
mm.
Like you were saying, we all kind of have that fear of being a beg and sounding
Yeah.
like desperate for friendship. But 9 times out of 10, when I text someone, I'm like, what are you doing next weekend? Let's go to brunch. I have no plans. I had no plans. 9 times out
Literally.
of 10, but if you're home, sometimes I would be home on social media. It seems like everyone has this great life and everyone is
Mm,
at brunch, everyone is at the party. But 9 times out of 10, everyone else is looking for that connection, vulnerability, and intimacy. But we almost
mhm.
always have that fear that everyone else is living a better life. So we just
Yeah.
don't wow. But by the time you reach out, almost they're like, "Thank you for thinking of me." Sometimes my text,
Yeah.
I'm just like, "Of course I thought of you." Or I will be hosting something and she would say, "Thank you for thinking of me." And, no one invites me anywhere. And
Yeah.
and vice versa. Like when someone messages me, I'm always grateful. Like, "Thank you for thinking of me," because I was just going to be on my couch watching Netflix all day. So sometimes
Facts.
I think we always have that in our mind that everyone else is so busy and
Yes.
you're imposing on them, or you're asking for something they don't want to do, you're being naggy. But most of the time people are just there asking, actually waiting to hear from someone else. So if you're, and I
Mm.
think for me that's also been hard, and I think people say that a lot, if you are the planner, you're
Mm.
the one that likes to go out and you're very great at finding new restaurants, sometimes it can get hard because you feel like you're always the one planning. So it might take, and you might have a friend who's just not that way. They're just not
Yeah.
very intentional sometimes. So I think sometimes it's okay to identify what you're good at and not
Yes.
be afraid of maybe having to reach out more often than the other person. But of course, there has to be a balance, but sometimes you
Yeah.
have to take initiative a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great observation and explanation of that. And I think two things do come to mind, which is sometimes when you do identify your strength and genuinely, this is your friend's weakness, then it's kind of just a posture of like, this is the cross I have to bear in this
Yeah,
relationship. Like, she is not going to remember to do this. So it's fine. I'll do it because I actually enjoy it. Right. I do
exactly.
think when it does come to a point where you feel like this is
Mhm.
one-sided, or I feel like I'm being used or taken for granted, I do think that's something you should verbalize. But the second thing is, I don't think people should be so afraid to formalize these things. One thing that I've kind of studied within romantic relationships is this emphasis on things like date night and scheduled time together. And I think a lot of us think because friendships are casual, or some people view them as less important than relationships, romantic relationships, they kind of don't take that same approach of like, oh, okay, if I feel like I'm always organizing stuff, let me actually vocalize that, listen, every date, every friendship date, I'm going to organize one and then you're going to organize one. I
Right.
think that's it. It's actually that simple. Like, lay your expectation. And with friendships in particular, we are very bad at verbalizing our expectations. And unexpressed expectations always lead to disappointment. And so I think it's important for us to become confident in being like, girl, it was so nice seeing you. I'm looking forward to seeing what you plan next, because I can't
Yeah.
plan all of these. And it can be that casual and that funny and that jovial, because that's what friendship is,
Yeah.
but it's communicating in a way that both of you find fondness in. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think we should become more active as well in being like, you know what we should do? Every month, let's exchange. Like, we'll do something you want to do, we'll do something
Yeah.
I want to do, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that. And something I think I always hear often as well, especially as the older that we get, is how to maintain friendships at different life stages. I think you'd mentioned that, right? Where you have a friend, because even when I remember the first week I got on Bumble BFF and I'm reading all the girls' bios is, all my friends are married. I need to make other
Mm.
friends because I can't relate to my married friend anymore.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but then it's that because one person is married and has 4 kids and you're single and you're just out here, you're dating,
Mm.
that doesn't negate the level of friendship that you should have. So what advice would you give people that feel like, my married friend isn't showing up for me or she can't relate to my life anymore, and vice versa, the married friend's thinking, I need someone that could only go on mommy dates, or I don't want to be friends with this person, but how can they still keep that
Yeah.
conversation going? So kind of what advice would you give?
Yeah. I think this is such a beautiful question, because we see it, especially as we get older, right? It's like life happens at different stages for everybody. And suddenly your friend who you thought you were teenagers with is actually now married with 4 kids and a house and a mortgage. And you're there like, I'm going to another country. So
Yeah.
I think the first thing is your married friends, your friends who have become mothers, your friends who maybe now have a different job, they still need you. They still need your friendship. I think it's one, addressing it, like really having an intimate conversation with your friend that is, I love you and I am so happy for you. And I understand that this may change the nature of our friendship, but I'm still committed to being your friend. And how can I show up for you in this season, right? What are the changes that are about to happen. You know, if it is that you're about to go on your honeymoon and you and your husband are going to be booed up, now understand we're not going to be going to brunch every other week. You know, we're not going to be chilling at each other's house every other week. It's okay, right? And I think preparing your heart for the change is a big one.
Yes.
Two, seeing how you can now be active in their life, even if it's in a different way. So, okay, cool. We usually meet up to do this, but now that you have a child, can I come over whilst you're baby and do some babysitting? Or can I, still be around whilst we're doing the laundry or whilst we're clean? All of these things seem like, I don't want to do that. I don't have a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, but your sister does.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
do your auntie duties kind of thing. So I think it's also stepping up to the plate and realizing, though the nature of the friendship may change, you can still show up as a friend and serving a different capacity. And that still builds intimacy and allows you to have that time together. But the last thing I will touch on is sometimes people do get into a relationship and switch up,
Yes.
especially with married women, not to dog or married women at
Yeah,
all. I
but
hope
yeah.
to be one day, but
Yes,
a lot of the advice that is given
Yeah.
is you need married friends now. Like
Yes.
your single friends cannot understand what it
Mhm.
is you're going through. And I think it's important for all of us to take on the responsibility of remembering that
Yeah.
everyone has wisdom, even if they're in a different season to you. Your single friends may have a perspective on certain things, which may actually be helpful to you and remind you of the really important parts of remaining who you were, before the
Yeah.
relationship, or, growing in certain things. I have friends who are married who I've had to like give advice on and be like, girl, you need to listen to your husband, or you need
Yes.
to, because there's still that wisdom there. And so I think it's also valuing your friends as individuals and not just their relationship status, and whittling them down to just, oh, she's single, she's
Uh-huh.
married. Your friend is so much more dynamic than that, right?
Exactly.
It's the same way with your friends who are maybe mothers. Like, don't assume that they don't want to go out, because they may be sitting down thinking, damn, since I had a baby, everyone assumes I'm just sitting at home breastfeeding my baby. I want to go out somewhere.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
yes, I do need to be home by 7 p.m, but I still want to
I
go out
would
somewhere.
be outside
you know
too.
I want to be outside. And so, maybe adjust the plans to make sure that your friend also still gets to come. Like, I think it's about the season is not just shifting for your friend, it's shifting in your friendship. And
Yeah.
so allowing that change to happen and being as helpful to that, but also as understanding as well. People
Mhm.
are not perfect. They don't get things perfect. I think transitions can be hard for anyone. And so also giving that grace that is, I know you've got a lot going on right now. It's okay that you didn't message, but I'm going to still show up and do my part. And I think once you then enter that stage, potentially, you'll be thinking, oh, I'm so thankful that I extended grace because now I need it.
Exactly. And I think to that, kind of the next question I wanted to go into, what you said is it's about communicating expectations, right? Because you
Yes,
see a lot of the time is when you're not communicating those expectations, that's why the friendship falls apart, because I didn't know that you
absolutely.
did this for me, or I didn't know you were feeling like I wasn't showing up enough, or I didn't know you were feeling like I wasn't inviting you enough to certain things.
Hmm.
So communicating that, but with love, right? With respect, that
Yes,
sometimes you go in kind of combative. Well, you didn't invite me.
yes,
I felt so it's also how you communicate, which I'm sure we all know makes a huge difference. And so that kind of ties into my question.
absolutely.
What we were seeing a lot around friendship breakups, and this friend is a narcissist, and this friend gaslighted me, and this friend, all these terms that we have now. So how do you kind of navigate that? Because I think more
Mm,
often than not, we have those situations where we feel like this person didn't show up, and then you kind of just start phasing out and stop reaching out, and then before
mm,
you haven't talked in a year or two. So
yeah,
the question is kind of twofold: is how do you know when a friendship is worth saving and communicating, or when a friendship is worth, okay, maybe this isn't good for me anymore, let me just walk away? So also how to have
yeah,
a conversation and be able to say, this friendship isn't working for me, maybe it looks differently, but I just want to be
mm,
upfront, versus I'm almost ghosting, as we say, and
yeah,
not
yeah.
responding to your friend. So how do you navigate those hard friendship reconciliation or breakups?
Yeah. You know what? There isn't a one size fits all situation for me. I feel like, first of all, you need to know intuitively to some degree, is
Mhm.
this somebody I still want to be friends with? Like,
Yeah.
as much as I may be pissed off about the situation, the way that that was handled, and I'm hurt, and actually, do I still want to be friends with this person? If
Yeah.
the answer is yes, then I think approaching the conversation as, you know what, I really love you and I really want our friendship to work. I really want to have a better relationship with you, but this happened and it really hurt me. I would love if we could have a conversation about it. And I think going into the conversation, knowing your intention, which is to salvage the relationship and, like you said, reconcile, really changes your approach to things. You don't just go out all guns blazing, you did this, you did that, because that's what makes people, you know, on the defensive. And then when you're angry, you end up saying stuff that you really didn't want to say, you know? So it's about really knowing, what am I trying to accomplish here? I think if the answer to the first question is, I actually don't want this friendship anymore, I feel like I've outgrown it, I feel like it's draining to me, I think one, a healthy conversation is required if that person still believes you are their friend. Right? Because it's different when it's like both sides are kind of like, we're not really in this anymore. Maybe you were childhood friends, but life has taken you here and them there. And so it's kind of like, we don't talk anyway. It's okay. I know what it is. I don't think a conversation needs to be had there. But if it is that this person still perceives that you are their friend and has expectations for you as a friend, I do think it's worth having a conversation around, like, you know what, I wouldn't even go in and being like, I don't want to be a friend like that, because that can make someone feel rejected. But I do think letting someone know, like, I don't have the capacity to do this thing, but I do have the capacity to do this. You know, it could be that I don't want to hang out with you every week, but I can do a coffee every month, or maybe I can do a virtual date every month, you know, and letting people know I do still have time for you, because I think humans just want to be seen. And as human beings, we should also see them. You know, if somebody is wanting a friendship out of you, it could probably be because they see something in you which they really want in their life, you know? So I think it's now about setting your boundaries around what it is you want to give to this relationship. And the reason why I use relationship is that I think it's important for you, at least within your own mind, to define what this relationship is. If you are in a friendship with someone and you feel like, I want to end it because they're constantly complaining on the phone, or they're constantly just asking me for advice, but they're not showing up for me, maybe that friendship isn't meant to be a friendship, it's meant to be a mentorship kind of situation. And even if that isn't formalized, treating it like that allows you to at least protect your own emotions. I'm not expecting you to treat me as a friend. I'm not expecting you to show up as a friend, because I don't even see you as a friend. I see you as a mentee. And that's actually okay. That's not an insult. That's just me guarding my own emotions by compartmentalizing these relationships in my mind. And so letting myself know, this is someone who I'm really helping with spiritual growth at the moment, or this is someone who, you know, I'm supporting through this season of life. Like, really being clear about, God, why am I in this person's life, right? Is this person meant to be a reciprocal friend to me, or am I meant to be doing something for them? Helps me to assess, do I have the capacity for that? And have I aligned my expectations so that I am not disappointed? And I think when we think more consciously about categorizing our friendships in that way, we know what's worth fighting for and what actually isn't a fight or a demotion, but rather just a reallocation to the right position in our lives.
A word. I love that. I love that word about categorizing your friends. And I think that's something that I wanted to talk to you about, because, you know, I think we grew up, you know, watching movies and TV, and, you know, I have this one best friend and we've been friends since we were 5, and we're doing life together. We got married on the same week and we have kids at the same time. We live next to each other. Now we're neighbors.
Yeah.
And yay, you know, but life doesn't happen that way. Like, as you grow, things happen, values change, interests change, passions change, life stages aren't happening at the same time. So kind of, what is your opinion on, to your point, having those different friends and being okay with, you know, this friend is someone I go to brunch with, and this friend is someone I go to church with, and this friend is a mentor, you know, do you see that that works better in having a diversification of friendships, just kind of having this, because, you know, we grew up like Insecure and Sex in the City and Girlfriend, and you have this one core group of girls that you go to for everything, which I think is great to have that core community on you. But I think sometimes it might put pressure on, especially if it's one person, to be all of the things for almost your entire life. So how does that work around shifting the expectations and sharing that responsibility around different people versus having it all on maybe one person or two at once?
Such a good point. I think the examples you gave are actually the perfect way to answer this. When we look at shows like Insecure, Sex in the City, Girlfriends, the friendships were dysfunctional in some way, because there was this heavy expectation of, you need to be my everything, maybe even until I get everything I want. Like, for example, a lot of people turn their friendships or their best friend into their husband or into their boyfriend because they're single. And so it's like, you're my person to go to for everything. And there's this analogy we use in our book and on our podcast regularly, which is, you cannot make anybody your son. You cannot make anybody the center of your universe, right? The center of your universe universe cannot be a person. It cannot be anyone else external to you or anything else external to you, because people change, life changes, circumstances change, people die. Like, not to get morbid, but
Yeah.
you've now, your whole life is based on your relationship with this person, and now they're gone. And it's like,
Yeah.
damn, not only am I grieving my friend, I'm grieving my entire world. I
Yeah.
think it's important to not idolize your friends to the point where you make them the god in your life, but also you allow them the room and the grace to be able to be infallible human beings, which is what people are.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, fallible human beings. People are not infallible. They are capable of failing. They are capable of doing wrong. And I think it's important that we allow them that space, because if not, we ourselves will struggle to forgive. Like,
Yes.
I put all this expectation on you, and then you didn't do this one thing. And not only am I grieved by it, but you've shattered my entire perception of who you are. And I don't even know if I can trust you again. It's like, girl, all she did was not pick up the phone, or not, wish you happy birthday, or not come to your birthday dinner. Like, and then it then completely blinds you from the ability to be empathetic to her situation and maybe show up for her in times when she needs, because you're being selfish. And I think allowing ourselves to have that diversification of friendship allows us to have realistic expectations for everybody, right? And I'm not saying go in completely hopeless to your friend, you're not gonna, show up. No, have real expectations, but remember that your friends are human like you. And the same way you fail to do stuff sometimes, they're gonna fail to do stuff sometimes. And I think what we see, even with that married women example, right, which is go into your relationship and you make your partner everything. And it's like, no, actually, you need friends. Like, you actually need an outlet outside of your relationship. And it's the same with friendships. Like, you need an outlet outside of this person, especially if they have outlets outside of you.
Yes.
Because that's how you start to feel like, rah, you're my best friend, but you have 7 best friends. I don't like that.
I don't
And you
like
become
that.
super possessive. It's that same playground mentality of, why somebody else calling you their
The
best
best.
friend? You're my best friend. You belong to me. It's like,
Yeah.
you don't own anybody.
Yeah.
You don't own anybody. All you can do is relish in the amazing privilege of having a relationship with someone, and that being to varying degrees with different people, but you don't own anybody. You don't own anyone's time. And I think diversifying your friendship allows you to humanize your friends, and it allows you to remember that your friends are not the center of your universe. Yes, relationships are important and community is important, but one of the earliest chapters in our book is on becoming the best version of you. It's actually the first chapter after the friendship profiles, because a lot of people forget that, yes, building relationships are important, but if you lose sight of being who you need to be, you're not only going to be a bad friend, you're going to turn your friend into bad friends in your own eyes, right? So allowing yourself to actually remember you're becoming the best version of yourself, and you're bringing that to the friendship, you're bringing that to the relationship. But also, these friendships are one of the most amazing tools that you can have to making yourself the best version of yourself. But your main focus here is walking out your path and your journey, and making sure that you're giving grace that you want to receive, making sure that you're healing, making sure that you are, focused on your own goals. Because I also find, sorry to be rambling on this point,
No,
but I really
I feel
see it
like the
happen a
girls are
lot.
getting their lives.
I really, I really see it happen a lot. The reason why people
Yes.
often obsess over their best friend is because you don't have a life. Like,
Mm.
you're not focused on your job, you're not focused on your
Yeah.
business, you're not focused on your house, you're not focused on all these things that make you step away from
Yeah.
your phone and make you step away from your friendship group to go and do the work that you've been called to do. So I think it's also really solidifying, like, who am I? Who am I outside of this relationship? Who am I outside of this friendship? Who am I outside of these people? Who am I? Like, what am I on this earth to do? And I think maintaining that mindset of, but Courtney, yes, Renee is your best friend. Yes, you have amazing friends around you. And without them, the assignment that you've been called to wouldn't be achieved. But at the end of the day, you're on assignment and you have to answer for your own life at the end of this age, And so reminding myself of that allows me to think, I can't put my eggs in everybody. I can't make everybody the center of my universe, but they can be a planet. And planets make universes beautiful. They make them diverse. And actually, we need other planets to protect us and keep us in equilibrium, right? But they just can't be the sun. They can be a Jupiter, they can be a Mars, they can be a Venus, but they can't be your sun.
Ooh, Come on. I think that we can do this all day, but I think that's a
We
good place
could.
for us to end. I want people to be able to ask their own question, but that is amazing. I think that analogy that you ended with around having, everyone can be the planets, but they're not the universe, they're not the sun, is so good, because I think we do see that a lot where, this is my best friend and I expect her to show up for all the things and be there for all the things and pick up the phone when I need it. But people have lives. You have lives. Go live it. That should be okay. So that
Yeah.
is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So I
Thank
want to open
you.
the floor, and actually really quickly, speaking of Courtney's book, which I know she's mentioned, we have a giveaway. So I'll see if the attendees are here. We're going to give away 2 books to some of the attendees today. So I'll have that at the end. So, but really quickly, if you have a question that we didn't get to about friendships, relationship, if you're having any issues with your friends that you just kind of want advice on, you can either drop it in the Q&A or you can just raise your hand and we will take you off mute so you can actually speak to Courtney directly and ask your questions. But this has been incredible. So anyone have any
Thank you.
for Courtney, any friendship dilemmas you all are going through?
And then my way.
Send them Courtney's way.
But thank you so much, Fasola. This has been an amazing opportunity and a lovely
So
conversation to
fun.
have.
I know. I love this. I love this. All right, let's see. Is Emanuela here? I know she was my first winner for the book.
Woo woo.
I don't see her here. Okay. All right. So I'm actually going to go ahead and give this book to Shola just because she has been a very engaging participant in the chat. So Shola, you have won 2 copies of Courtney and Renee's book. So I will reach out to you to get your email and we'll figure that out and I'll send you over 2 copies of the book. Thank you so much for being here. Any
Thank
questions
you.
from anyone? Do you guys have anything for Courtney? Anything we didn't get to that you all want to hear about? I know we've talked about a lot, so we've probably covered all
We
of the
have.
things. All right, Stella raised her hand, so I'm gonna bring her up to ask a question. Let's see. You can unmute, Shell, I think. Yeah, let me know if you can. If not, you should be able to unmute. Okay. All right, you should be good.
All right, so thanks, Courtney, for speaking. You've been an amazing, amazing guest. I mean, your words have just you've given me language for all the things and the way that I kind of live my life. So I appreciate it. I do have a question around what you think around like friendship breakups. Like, what is a good way to do friendship breakup? Like, what is a healthy way to do that? What have you
Yeah.
seen, I guess, in your experience around friendship breakups?
You know what's so funny? So as I explained, this is a little bit of tea, but I had a friendship end last year. And recently that friend messaged me and was like, after a long while, was like, okay, this is kind of how I've processed through everything that was happened. This is why our bust up kind of went like this. And, I'm happy for us to end our friendship here, but I really do appreciate the time that we have had. I feel like having that kind of boundary setting, which is maybe something that's happened in this friendship, which is to some degree irreconcilable or will take a long time for us to heal from. It's okay for us to pause things here and hold things here. I need my space. And I think it's just having that genuine communication, which isn't ruined by like passive aggression or you trying to be shady or you trying to get in there but you also did this and you always no, like just genuinely, this is how I feel. And it took her a year before she sent me that message. And so maybe it will take you some time. But I do think it's sending a very amicable, very, decent message like that is great because it lets people know where you both stand. And it lets them know that not necessarily that it's no hard feelings, because maybe there are hard feelings, but that this is just where we're at. Like it's just genuine communication. And I think for me, having received that message, it was like, wow, it really dawned on me. I had done something which really hurt her. I wasn't, don't get me wrong, I'm not here talking about female friendships and I'm really toxic outside. It wasn't like really toxic. It was just a buildup of stuff, like I said, like not responding to messages, not like being on time to certain things. She was actually getting married and it was kind of like that was the penultimate thing. She was like, you haven't RSVP to my wedding. I'm like, girl, the deadline isn't now. And she's like, but everyone's RSVP. What about you? So it just kind of resonated with me that like, oh, this has hurt somebody. and it gave me something to reflect on. It was awkward. I felt really, you know, upset about it, but I was glad at least that she communicated. So I hope that that long ramble has kind of given you some insight, but I think the best way to do it is keep your hands clean and just communicate. Like, really just put it out there. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm processing through, and I'm okay for us to end our friendship here. But I'm really glad for the time that we did have, and really leave, especially with friendship breakups. I think it's so easy to leave with that sour taste in your mouth and forget that there were actually some really good times. And I think it's harboring those feelings of, how could they do that to me, and letting it build up into a place of resentment that stop us from then going off on to having healthy relationships with other people. And a lot of people are hesitant to engage in friendship again because it's like, that person really hurt me, that person I trusted. But it's remembering that that person also really loved you at some point as well. So allowing yourself to really leave with the good parts also. And yeah, my friendship with that lady who messaged me has actually, you know, we're starting to make small steps. I could tell she was warming up to me a little bit again, because at the end of the day, oftentimes when we end friendships, it's not because this person is evil. Sometimes they have been.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. Some people are crazy,
Yeah.
witches in disguise. Sometimes it's they are evil, but also sometimes it's just because they had a bad moment. It's not that they're bad people.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Hopefully that was helpful.
Hopefully.
Yes, I'm sure it was. Okay. We have a couple of more questions. So really quickly, because I know we have 4 minutes. So in case anyone needs to drop, I do want to say that this conversation, which I know I will be replaying, I'm sure some of you want to replay, will be back up, will be available on YouTube and Spotify probably in the next week. So when it's available, I will send an email out to all of you so you can send it to your friends. If you have a friend that you need to be a better friend and you don't want to say, I'm going to drop a hint, it's like, I'm just sending you this link, you know? So I'll share it out to you all. So if you need a drop, you'll be able to replay this conversation later. Okay. So question really quickly. Lillian said, how has the journey to entrepreneurship via the podcast been? What are some things you wish you knew ahead of time?
It's been amazing. It's been amazing. I think the beautiful thing about podcasting is the community building element. To be in somebody's ears every week is very intimate and allows you to build a, you know, somewhat parasocial but genuine relationship with them. And so I think it's really aided in knowing who you're serving, building up that audience, and yeah, trying to see what opportunities can be birthed out of that, whether it be product solutions for them, or you know, the retreats that we do. We travel the world with women, our podcast listeners, or live shows in other countries or in London, or creating, you know, smaller, intimate community activation events where people can just connect with one another and make friends. It's funny, today I was speaking to a lady who came with us to Tanzania in 2022, and she's still friends with her roommate from that trip, and they're going to Vienna on Friday. And I was just like, that is so crazy. Like, they didn't know each other before they came. And we've had so many conversations like that. So it's just really been beautiful to have this avenue to create more and more, you know, opportunities for women to actually meet with each other. And yeah, getting to do it with my best friend has been really good. Is there anything I wish I knew ahead of time? Podcasts can be draining. Like, I really love it, but podcasts can actually really be draining because, like I said, when you are building an intimate relationship with people and it's one-sided, when they finally do catch you outside, they're going to they're going to want to talk.
Yeah.
You know, they're so used to you talking to them for an hour
Yeah.
that like now they want to talk to you, and it's like, yeah, I want
Not
to go to
today.
sleep. You know, please. But you know what? It's all a part of the territory, and it's actually really enjoyable because we get to meet such amazing people, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can even imagine like just the consistency it takes to have to, because me just even doing this monthly is a lot.
You already know.
Doing it weekly, and you know, if you have guests to book them, what topic am I going to talk about that I haven't talked about before? Keeping that on a
Before.
weekly basis
Yeah.
consistently, I mean, I can't even imagine. So I know that you all are, I mean, it's amazing what you all have built, but I can imagine all the things that it takes behind the scenes to get it going and build a community that you have. So yeah, that's incredible. Thank
Thank
you, Lydia,
you.
for that question. So Lydia actually had a second question.
Mhm.
You also wanted to know, how do you approach support from friends for your business or the lack thereof? Because I think we do see that a
I
lot where
love that.
I know. I remember people even used to tell me, like, don't expect your friends to support because your friends are
Mm-mm,
your audience. And I've
mm-mm.
seen that. I've seen that come forward a lot, where it's, your friends love you and they can support you when they can. But then if you're holding them to kind of task where you didn't promote my event for me, or you didn't do
Mm-hmm.
this thing for me, you start having resentment. So I've had
Yeah.
to work on that with my friends and not feeling that, where people have lives, like you said, and not expecting them to be the core audience sometimes. So, but how has that worked for you, and how have you navigated that?
Yeah, especially when I was running my hair company. Obviously,
Mm,
all of my friends mainly are women. So
yeah.
just kind of like, girl, what do you mean you bought this wig from AliExpress? I sell
Yeah.
hair. So, I just couldn't take everything personally.
Yes.
But I mean, thankfully, let me precursor that a lot of my friends did support me and at least bought from me once, if not recurringly. However, you've got to realize, like you said, and I know it sounds cliche because you've probably seen it, but your friends are not your target audience, which is my hair was out of a lot of people's price point, and so it's like, girl, if I can get it for cheaper somewhere else and it can hold me down, why would I stretch myself
Yeah.
to come to you? And some of them were saving up so that they could, buy from me. But I think it's understanding that, like you said, they have their own world as well. They have their own budgets that they are working with. And it's the same even with like friendship dinners and, going on holiday with your girls and stuff. Everyone has their own life they're trying to manage.
Mhm.
And so allowing yourself to be like, yo, it would actually be really nice if you bought from me, and making sure that they know what's, products are out there, maybe even allowing them to give you feedback and being like, girl, I'll give this to you on a discount if you give me some reviews and some, stuff like that. I think some people are kind of shying away from that now because they're like, no, you should pay me my worth. And it's like, I'm sorry to break it to you, but your friends might not find your business valuable. Like, and that's okay. I think it also, and it may also give you insight into, you have some things to improve. Because if the main reason why you think I should buy from you is simply because we have a relationship,
Yeah.
you might not have a good product.
Mm,
Your product should be so good that whether you were my friend or not, I would have bought from you
yeah.
regardless. And I think that's a place that we had gotten to. Even with this podcast, some of our friends listen every single week, not because they can't call us, not because they don't see us, but because the podcast is so good that they're like, I need to listen to this podcast. I need it. But that's because the product is good. And
Yeah.
so actually making sure that the product is good. But even if the product is great, you've got a bomb company, don't take it personally.
Personally, yeah, I've almost had to put that on my forehead because it's so true. Exactly like you said. I've had friends that log into this every single month, text me, girl, you look beautiful. You were bomb. I'm gonna replay it. I'm gonna
Shout
send
out to them.
shout out, but then there's some friends where they have to work. It's the middle of the
Yeah.
day, they can't attend, and you can't take it personally. Or I have events and I'll say, I wish you that you would have come. I wish you would have shown up. But they said, some of them don't even have anything else to do, but they're just like this person, I didn't want to see them speak, or this isn't someone that I know personally. So
Yeah.
I just didn't want to show up. Or sometimes, they're not your audience, and not take
And sometimes,
yeah, go
sorry to
ahead.
interrupt you.
No, no.
Sometimes they're just not your friend like that. Like, I think that's another thing. It's like,
Oh,
I'm
talk
not
about
your friend like
it.
that.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I would love it if I could I could show up to everything, but I didn't think we were friends like that, so I'm not gonna sacrifice every single month, like I gotta
Yes.
show up for you. And so
Yes.
I will show up to one, but to
Yeah.
have that expectation is a bit wild. And I
Exactly.
think it's also yourself like regulating, it would be nice, but they ain't close to me like that, so that's okay.
Exactly. Yes, I love that. I love that. That's such a great response. But I feel like it comes up so much, especially with the rise of entrepreneurship. And it's so hard, to have an idea and put it out into the world, and you're going to expect this flood of love, which is
Yeah.
always best to come, but you may not get it in the way that you want. And then even sometimes people are supporting you without you knowing. Like sometimes I would have a friend
Yes.
reach out to me, and she would say, like, a month after it's done, and she would say, I couldn't come, but I've sent that thing to 5 people. I've sent the
Yeah.
link to your event or your podcast to 20
Yeah.
people. You don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So also give people grace is something I've had to learn, because I would be shocked, and
Facts.
I remember, I would think, oh, this person didn't even care. They didn't even give me any feedback. But behind the scenes, they're showing you all the love and spreading the word and sending to those.
Yeah.
Also give grace, because they may not show up in the way that you want, but they're showing up anyway.
And you know what? A perfect example of that is I have had certain friends who I didn't think watched my content. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that they watched my content because they'd never comment or they'd never share and things like that.
Yeah.
But those same friends have then, 6, 7 months down the line, sometimes even years, been like, oh, at my company, they're looking for people to da da da, and I put you
Yes.
forward.
Yes.
And next thing you know, yes, they didn't comment, but now I've got a whole couple bags in my
Yes.
account
Yeah.
because of their recommendation. And so I love that you highlighted that support looks different,
So,
and it
yeah.
could be they might not be a customer, but they may recommend you to absolutely everyone.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. One more question from Loretta. How do you keep your friends accountable in a friendship? My friend ended our friendship because I didn't know how to keep her accountable. Also, I struggle with confrontation.
Oh, sweet Loretta. I don't like it when women say I struggle with confrontation. That is your first problem. You need to become comfortable with the discomfort of confrontation. The reason why I say that is you are your biggest advocate. There's nobody who will advocate for your safety and your wellness and your happiness more than you can. And so when you aren't vocal about it, people take liberties, everybody, and you just allow it. So I think you have to reframe firstly. Confrontation doesn't have to look like conflict. It doesn't have to look like a fight. It doesn't have to look like, aggression. Confrontation is simply, I want to confront this issue because clearly there is an issue. And even seeing that I'm not confronting a person, I'm confronting an issue with this person, right? It's me and this person against the problem. And so let's address the elephant in the room. And so, or even if it's not an elephant, let's address that little thing in the corner, which I don't like. So you bring it up in a really respectful way. I think even with my relationship with Renee, there have been many times we've had to message each other and be like, hey, can we chat? I feel like there's something I really want to talk to you about. And we sit at our dining table, we just sit down and we're like, I noticed this thing, and in my head, it's been playing out like this. And it's really been getting to me. And ultimately the resolution I want is for our friendship to go back to how it used to be, girl. And so I think that conversation allows all not boundaries, allows all defenses, to come crashing down, because it's genuinely, I'm bringing this up because I love you and I care for our friendship and I care for you. And I'm not coming in here, punching and throwing blows. And I think reframing our view of confrontation will help us become more comfortable with that healthy confrontation. I do think it's important in terms of keeping people accountable is, one, has this person been open to accountability before? What does giving feedback look like in your relationship, right? Has your friendship had moments where you've been like, I don't really like that, or I feel like we could do this differently next time? And I think integrating that into the everyday of your friendship can actually be really helpful. And it could be, like I said before, in a very playful way, like, girl, I've been secure about that. Don't joke about that. You know, that kind of thing, it draws a boundary there. Or just being like, that kind of hurt me, that was too far. And again, that draws a boundary. And if your friend has any ounce of self-respect, shame, and empathy for you, they wouldn't want that to make you feel uncomfortable. So I think laying that boundary then gives you something to hold that person accountable to see if they keep doing it. If they keep doing it, then there's something clearly, I told you not to do this, you're doing it. So then you kind of move forward accordingly.
I love that. Hopefully that was helpful.
I
Okay.
hope that was helpful.
Yeah. I know we are 8 minutes over, so I want to respect Courtney's time, you all time, because I'm sure you all like, I need to go, but I want to hear the rest. So we're gonna let you all go. I have dropped the book, the link to Courtney and Renee's book in the chat. I know she's mentioned it. It has a lot of great tools, tips, tangible, actionable tips on how to be better friends, how to work on yourself to become a better friend. So you can grab the book in the comment, but also really quickly, Courtney, how can people find you if they want to follow up with you, see what's going on in your life? How can they find you?
Thank you. You can follow me on Instagram at CD Boateng. You can follow my YouTube channel, Courtney Daniella Boateng. It's literally just my name. And you can follow the To My Sisters podcast. on literally everywhere. Just search To My Sisters, you will find us. At To My Sisterhood is all our like handles on Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. And if you sign up to our mailing list on our website, tomysisters.com, you'll be notified of when we have events and community activations and things that you can be a part of, as well as like our fundraisers and stuff that you can donate to. So that's me.
Yes, I love it. I love it, Courtney. I mean, this has been incredible for me. I know for the people that have come and gone through this conversation. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your time, for your insight, for your advice. This has been one of my favorites conversations.
Oh,
Definitely.
yay.
So
Thank
good.
you for having me,
Something that
honestly.
shows up
Like,
every day, shows up every day in
thank
our
you.
lives. It's such a big thing. You know, there's a lot of focus on romantic partners, but I think friendship is so massive. And so I think it's so important. So thank you so much for this conversation, for everything that you do. So honored to have you. I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, honestly, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you to everyone who's also attended and taken time out of your day. God bless you all, and I hope you have flourishing relationships.
Hopefully. Thank you all so much. Bye.